Welcome to the return of Johanna Carroll's Dialogue with Divinity. The conversation continues. In today's episode, Johannes will give us a teaching on how to live fearlessly, or, for the most part, how to live in divine awareness in a world full of fear. And now we bring you our host, international intuitive, author, and spiritual teacher, Johanna Carroll.
Hi, everybody. This is your host, Johanna Carroll, and you're listening to Dialogue with Divinity. The conversation continues on Metaphysical Talk Radio. So welcome. Take a breath. Spend some time with us. We're here to lift you up, not pull you down. So today we've got an interesting topic, how to live fearlessly, which is a very interesting word, fearlessly, when sometimes we take a look at the news or social media, and that's really all that we're seeing. The activation of fear at a very deep, profound level. So I wanted to take a look today at what the year that we're in really represents universally. And I'm going to do it from a Tibetan numerological point of view. We're going to make this as simple and kind of fun as possible. So in Tibetan numerology, 2020 is a 4-year. So obviously we add the twos together and it equals a 4. So this is, first of all, I want to say that math is the primary language of the universe. Everything that has been put together in creation had some kind of a systemic formulary around it, including you, by the way. So the Tibetan system of numerology is one of the oldest ones that you will find, and it's one that I've studied and I've taught for about 36 years right now. So I pay attention to it without getting overly analytical. So I want to take a look at what this 4-year represents and how we're seeing it presented to us. And then within that, how can we monitor our level of awareness spiritually and work in a world, live in a world, exist in a world, create in a world where we're not pulled down by fear. So the 4 in Tibetan numerology, so think of a square. It's got 4 sides and it's solid, right? So it's a foundational year. And if you think of yourself standing on top of a square or a foundation, it's what you believe in. In the outer world, it's the systems that, quote unquote, support us. And so the reality right now is really and truly all these systems, political, financial, health, everything that's out there globally is being challenged. And it's being challenged by the dark and the light, by the way. So hopefully you're on the side of the light, and that's the perspective that we're going to take on this today. So also, if you think of a house, generally the first thing that you pour when you're building a house is a foundation so that the house can stand really strong. In metaphysics, the house represents your levels of consciousness. And your levels of consciousness cannot be strong unless you have a belief in yourself and the divine that's private and personal and uniquely belongs to you. So if we look at that 4 standing upright like a really strong tree, like grandfather tree where all the wisdom is, we know that beneath our feet, moving us along the sidewalk of life, is a belief in something far greater than ourselves. And it's called awareness. So some people may connect to a religious belief or belief in themselves. We've talked about this, Gary, before. They know what it means to do the right thing. What is the right thing? Not just for yourself, but how it affects humanity the world and the universe at large. If that 4 is turned in an upside down position, which we're seeing a lot of that on the earth right now, all the systems go wonky, weird, and we feel that the world that we're living in is a very shaky place. And so things get stirred up. However, does that mean that you have to go down the drain energetically with mass consciousness? So we know that the only system we can really count on is the one really underneath your feet. And so I always say, we have to think of the world that we're living in like a moving sidewalk. Where are we moving ourselves to in our belief systems? Are we attaching to a certain wave of thought, energy? Are we being carried along by a group thought? Are we being hypnotized at some level? Or are we saying, that's not right for me. This doesn't resonate for me. So let's look at it this way. We have a difference between worry as a continuum, which is draining us. I'm worried about this. I'm scared about this. I'm afraid about this. The world is a mess. Everything's upside down. I can't count on anything. What is it doing? It's activating fear at a very, very large level, which is intended to do one thing: paralyze us. Paralyze us so we cannot think for ourselves. Remember, I think, therefore I am. Now, if we look at it from a spiritual point of view, where that 4, that foundation is really strong, and we have that private, personal relationship with the divine, whatever works for you, where we are doing the right thing. Instead of worry, draining energy, being paralyzed in fear, there's a difference of having an active concern, which is awareness. It's attending to something in the moment, creating a plan, activating a plan. Then the sidewalk of life is moving you based on the needs of your belief, your body, your mind, your spirit, your soul, and the law of action, which is guided by the divine. So a 4-year is all about systems and foundational beliefs. It's also about having a plan. It's also understanding, as we're coming out of this global washing machine that's flipping us all over the place these days, when we come out of this so-called cleansing period, what's the foundation we're going to be standing on? How can we live fearlessly? So maybe we should be calling this show today, How to Live with Divine Awareness, rather than embracing fear as a constant in our life. So we know that to live without fear, we must be on an eternal focus plane of awareness. There has to be a connection to the divine. And so I'm going to give you something that our Sunday meditation group has been using as a group together, but individually during the week we've been using it a lot. And I know myself, I've been using it. It's probably going to sound really simple to you, but this is what we do. We take our arms, we cross it over our chest, so we're giving our heart and ourself a really big hug. We close our eyes for a moment, and this is what we do. We say, "Be with me. Be with me." And if you're doing this right now, hopefully you're not driving a car, but you're stationary, just put your hands over your chest and take a breath, close your eyes, and breathe in and say, "Be with me." So first of all, it's letting you know you're not alone out there in the world trying to do the right thing. You're calling in all the energies and the realms of the divine into your consciousness. You're also aligning with a global group of people, and believe me, there's many, many people out there that are doing this, who are really raising the consciousness level to awareness and concern in the present moment rather than worry, fear, paralyzed, I'm not in control of my life. You see, when you apply the law of action and do the right thing for yourself, you're not separating yourself from a group that's connected to the divine, but you're creating a huge space from the group that perpetuates and is selling fear all over the globe. So when we're living fearlessly, we're understanding that the world that we live in, there's a lot of distractions going on right now. And it can really disrupt you. Our lives have been disrupted on some level. And yet, I think, Gary, like I always say, my favorite word these days is adjust. How are we adjusting not to further the disruption or the distraction, but what's the attraction? What are we being attracted to? And so the only thing that really, the only system, the only solid system, again, that we can really count on is our relationship with divine. So I lived in through the 1960s and all the chaos there. You know, we all experienced on some level a lot of international and domestic things that were going on. And we're not going to really focus on that today, but I do want to point out that when we had 9/11 happen, I had a lot of people calling me saying, give me a message. I need something to, grab onto. What's going on here? And so it's symbolic on some level. And so it was a horrific event that occurred. And if we look at what the towers represented, they represented a symbol of stability and success if we think of really what was going on. We're not going to really focus on that event, but let's just look at it as a time in history when things virtually fell apart. And so what I told a lot of people at that time, I'm going to repeat it again, we were asked at that time to take a look at the material world that we were living in, how we were being influenced by money, greed, power, and how we could take a look at what gave us inner strength. So the buildings falling apart was a belief that no one could interrupt our lives on some level. And so now, guess what we have? We have a global interruption. And yet the universe is saying, look, be with me. We are here with you. We are supporting you. We want you to choose love, not fear. You're strong within yourself. You wouldn't be alive in this time historically if we didn't choose it on some level. And I'm sure a lot of you are saying, yeah, I really chose this. Well, you know what? On some kind of spiritual level, for you to return to love on some level, we did choose it. So, Gary, as you know, I wrote a book a number of years ago called The Lost Art of Loving. And I'm thinking today, you know what? I should change the title, The Lost Art of Living, because really and truly, we've forgotten how to live from our
That's
soul
true.
and our self, from our higher self, our higher mind state of consciousness, rather than that lower mind. So one of the quotes that was in that book, there was a lot of channeled information that came through. Love does not abandon us. We abandon love. And when we hear the word love, we think of another person. Love is our divine state of being. It's our wholeness. It's our active self that's attending to something in the moment, working with the divine, being inspired, being motivated in this 4 year to create a plan, to activate a plan, and to be on that sidewalk of life along with the divine and all the support from the universe that's moving us forward. So we should always have, I feel like we should be a living, loving prayer. And I'm not coming from a religious point of view. When I say prayer, it's how you exist in the world. It's kind of, it's the golden rule in action. And so for us individually, and no matter where we're living, we all know what the right thing is to do. So when we live fearlessly, we're living from a point of living life with a tremendous amount of connection to the divine. Believe in ourselves. And right now we have an opportunity to rebuild the systems in our world that are going to support us moving forward. So for a lot of people, it's a new kind of work. For a lot of people, maybe not going to a high-rise office building anymore, or even a low-rise office building. You know, as we said in Dialogue with Divinity, the book that was written over 20 years ago, which was so strange at the time, the council, who is a group of ascended masters who work through me, or I work through them, I guess is another way of saying it, they really spoke that, you know, the high-rise towers, which would be the office buildings, would become dark, and that we would be working from home. And who would have thought of that over 20 years ago? However, technology has opened up beautiful doors. We're seeing telemedicine happen. We're using, and I have to say, Gary, all of the positive stuff that's happening out there on the internet is the presence of the divine, because the divine is energy. And, you know, does anybody really know how the internet works as far as information and all these Zoom classes and all of that? You know, we know about apps and platforms and all of that, but what's really guiding that energy? Yep. And so a lot of the companies that do have divine intention, it's my belief that they will move us forward and they will move us along. And all of the good, beautiful scientific and medical research that's coming out of advanced consciousness countries, lots of fabulous stuff coming from Israel and Europe. And, you know, lots of people are kind of looking at the United States right now saying, what's going on with you guys, you know? And I'm not bashing the country that I live in. I'm really not. But it's like, having experienced a lot of this in the 1960s, it's like, wow, are we back again? Well, maybe we're back again to revisit once again, how can we live without fear and without a belief and with a belief system that takes us to a higher point of view. And so I've been seeing so many really good things of people helping one another and food banks. And, you know, we're adjusting. Humanity that is not frozen in fear is adjusting. They're on that moving sidewalk of life. So you that are listening on an individual level, you have to serve your own soul first before you can serve the soul of others. And by serving your own soul first and doing the right thing, you're living without fear and you're a living example to others. So, you know, we're all mini masters right now. We're all mini masters creating a new system in this 4 year where we can go out into the world and feel safe and feel confident and feel really that what we're bringing out to the world is a new version of ourselves. So it's really an interesting time. So, Gary, when I say, okay, yeah, we should be out there living fearlessly, is that a hard thing for people to do? It's really a sort of a flip the switch consciousness-wise. We have to leave the world of greed and fear and manipulation. And, you know, once again, it's like the universe is saying, okay, you guys, let's do it again. Let's have a repeat cycle of awareness, which takes us to a higher level. And by the way, for those of you that are listening, that doesn't mean that you ignore, you know, be in the world but not of the world. Be very aware. Awareness doesn't mean you're asleep. It means you're awake, but your awareness level, the connection to the divine, is taking you to a new point of view. So how can you go out into the world, any of you, from this new perspective of, you know, living with the art of loving and understanding what that really means. This is not some kumbaya, we're going to sit in Om for 3 hours moment. No, this is being out in the world and doing it. You know, there's this great saying that's been going around. I meditate, I drink green tea, and I still want to slap someone. So it doesn't mean that we're going around, but, you know, you can be a spiritual person and be a passionate person. I would say, can you be a spiritual person and be an angry person? An angry person has got a lot of fear going around. You know, what are you angry at? It's it's outside of yourself. You can be disappointed with a situation. So how do you adjust to change your point of view and your behavior then? So this is really a fascinating subject for me today. So I asked you a question and I didn't give you an opportunity to answer it. I'm sorry. So what is your point of view, or what are you seeing out there? How to live fearlessly?
Well, I see a lot of things, and of course I get a chance to talk about it on my own podcast. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you mentioned I am drinking green tea right now.
I am too.
It's funny that you happen to be mentioning it, but nonetheless, here's the, and you've already and have touched on this before as well, Johanna. It may be a daunting thing or difficult thing for some people to live fearlessly, but it's not for those who are grounded, who are rooted and grounded. And I think that's really where it's at. I mean, yeah, meditation helps, but where is your focus? Where are you rooted? Are you grounded? That's another thing. I think you have to find that balance in your life so that you're not drifting through life, that you're traveling through life's journey and learning and developing and expanding and evolving. But when you're just drifting, of course, you're going to find it difficult to live fearlessly. But if you're grounded, all right, it's not difficult because you won't be set adrift by any stiff wind. And what I have found in many instances is that there has come a time where I've had to turn off or release certain things. I got rid of my Facebook account. It just was overwhelmingly negative. That plus there were just some things that I refused to listen to on the radio. I don't watch the news. I don't listen to the news. I know what's going on because I research it and scoop it out for myself. And I have specific resources where I will find news, objective news, that is. But, I grow myself, I find myself getting weary of, and I'm very, very keen to the sensationalism factor in the media because of the way I was trained in broadcast school.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I know when they're sensationalizing this pandemic. I know when they're, as of recent, where they're sensationalizing the events in Minneapolis, where constantly they dwell on the negative, and much of the positive gets overlooked. And a majority of the response to this issue has been positive because these officers were fired immediately. Charges are being brought.
Yep.
We have the communities coming together and speaking out, both white and black and others. Mm-hmm. So there is, and you touched on it as well, food banks, coming to help people who need food. Charity organizations mobilizing to help those who need a hand during this challenging epidemic time. There's a lot of positive, and that's what we should be sensationalizing, not the negative. So if we want to live fearlessly, learn how to sensationalize what is positive, because you will be surprised to find out that it's a 70-30 proposition, if not an 80-20, where 80 is positive and maybe 20% is negative.
Well, I also feel that as an individual, we have to take a look at how these things are affecting our lives. But you know what? It really boils down to, how can you help? So I have to say, the first thing is, I am on social media because I have a global clientele. And I've always felt that in moving things forward, I want to help inspire people and give them something either to laugh at, and not to ignore what's going on, but, just give them some joy in their life. And I have to tell you, the last couple of days, I said, I'd take a little mini vacation from social media because it's been really intense. And so, you push the light and awareness and joy and happiness and the celebration of life. And the dark is really pushing pretty hard right now. And so I think it's important on an individual level. What can you do to help yourself? Do we need to take a little break from all this negativity? So, it's not being selfish. I've said this many, many times. How can you serve your own soul first? By doing that, the magnetic field around you, which is called the oversoul or the etheric self, that expands. Then we have a brighter light of magnetism around us. Like attracts like in the universe. So when we're coming from that love of self and service to our soul first, generally people that are in alignment with it will be attracted to, or they will be attracted to us on some level. And certainly we can use a lot of social media, global stuff. There's so many good things that are going on out there in the world right now. So I think the main thing is this is a phenomenal opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves at a brand new level. And I have to tell you, I hate to use these trite sayings, but I do believe the cream does rise to the top. Goodness is rising to the surface. So we're seeing it a lot. And conversely, we know that the dark and the light coexist in one vacuum of space. We are seeing the polarization of extremes. So it's a matter of choice and being aware of it, but not being paralyzed by it is not ignoring it. So I think that's really a salient point that we need to remember. The other thing is that when you are kind to self and you're nurturing yourself and your soul, it doesn't mean you're isolating yourself from others. However, I would say in this intense time that we're living in, there needs to be at least one or two things that you do during the day to nurture yourself and serve now, for each person, that's going to be uniquely different. Some people are going for a walk. A lot of people are doing Zoom moments. There's a lot of wine times going on the internet right now, which actually I think is kind of fun for people to connect with one another. I think what people are missing on this big retreat that we're on is they're missing the social interaction of touch, hugging, having a physical connection. However, we have a wonderful opportunity to connect have a spiritual connection. And that's that four system that will never, ever leave you. So perhaps those of you who are listening, you've developed or you're connecting a new and a different way in reinvention of self. So even your reinvention of, maybe sitting and meditating, and I'm not saying it's bad because I think it's fabulous, but maybe that's not working for you anymore because there's so many mental distractions, which a lot of people are complaining about, which I understand that. So how can you do an active meditation, dancing, singing, eating a great meal? A lot of people, Gary, around here anyway, in California, are doing a lot of gardening and they're planting vegetable gardens. I've never seen anything like this before. It's really amazing. So people are going back to Gaia. They're going back to Mother Earth to really be nurtured by nature on some level. So in the reinvention of self and the new way of living faithfully with a new strong system of belief underneath your feet, I would say anything that can connect you to nature on some level. And so even if you're in a high-rise apartment building in Manhattan or elsewhere in the world and you don't have a yard to go out to, bring something of nature into your home. I don't care if it's a rock you pick up on the street or a pine cone, something like that. In Japan, they have a concept called forest baths, BATHF. So basically what it is when you go out into the forest or you go out around the trees, you're giving yourself a bath. You're giving yourself a cleansing, a healing on some level. And obviously there's so many metaphors around that. First of all, I always feel that nature is, number one, the best cathedral that there is. It is God looking back at us. We do feel better when we're out there. Certainly when you're walking among the trees, which in metaphysics is considered grandfather wisdom, and you've got all this oxygenation going on. It's a very healing, calming environment to be in. So, and see, you're moving. That's an active meditation. You're walking. It's an active meditation. So instead of having, your iPod or, you're glued to music or something, leave that at home and just breathe in pay attention to your environment. Don't bring another distraction into it. And that's really another thing that the universe is trying to really tell us right now. We cannot attend to life in the present moment if we've got all these other distractions going on in our mind. So the higher mind oftentimes gets obliterated by a cloud of confusion and chaos. And so some of it, can be a little intentional with some of the lower energies and entity groups that are out there right now. That's really where they'd love you to be. So give yourself the strength of divine purpose for creating a new system of doing things. So how can you be out in the world differently without being distracted from the higher mind? So the higher mind sees the beauty in things. It's very aware that things are changing and things are chaotic. Remember, chaos is the first law of creation. So it's intended to do what? To change. And so how can you align with that rather than disconnect from it? So I would say, I just love that whole concept of a forest bath, walking in nature, being cleansed. Even if it's, walking around your block, walking in your backyard if you have one, how can you connect with the moving energy of spirit where you're really staying in that present moment? See the beauty of the present moment. Let the future take care of itself. There's a great quote by Paramahansa Yogananda, phenomenal metaphysical teacher from India. So it's an interesting time that we're living in. I think we should take a little break and sip on our green tea. So let's take a quick break, Gary, and we'll be back in a few moments. So stay with us. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hi, everybody. This is Johanna Carroll, host of Dialogue with Divinity, also known as Metaphysical Talk Radio's Spiritual Mama. And I'm back. We did Dialogue with Divinity radio show for 9 years. I took a little break, and I decided in this tumultuous time that we're living in, I needed to come back. So here we are. I also want to remind you that our show, it has a live schedule. You can check that out here on metaphysicaltalkradio.com. And also you can go to my website, Johanna Carroll, JohannaCarroll.com for all my offerings, which include my books, my training sessions, and I'm so excited to tell you that I'm getting ready to launch an online school that is intended to inspire you, motivate you, give you really great tools to really live the best life possible. So thanks for stopping in to Metaphysical Talk Radio. I hope you have a beautiful, blessed day, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.
You can tune into previous episodes of Johanna's programs from previous seasons on our live stream and on our on-demand page. We also encourage you to join us for the return of Dialogue with Divinity. The conversation continues every Sunday, Tuesday, and Saturday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on Metaphysical Talk Radio. This is Gary Purifoy, co-owner and program director here at Metaphysical Talk Radio, with a simple solution to a common problem that many web listeners run into, and that is, how do I take MTR with me wherever I go? Well, the simple solution is 2 words: Simple Radio. That's right, Simple Radio. Go to your web store and find the Simple Radio free app by Streamer.com and download it, then find our listing in the directory. You can enjoy MTR wherever you go, in your car or anywhere, in beautiful, crisp, clear 192 kilobit sound. So once again, the simple solution to your traveling listening issues is the Simple Radio app in the app stores. It's totally free, so download it onto your phone and enjoy the listening experience for miles and miles. And as always, we thank you for listening to MTR, Metaphysical Talk Radio, at metaphysicaltalkradio.com. Johanna, you appear to remain very busy, and you have been continuing with your International Global Prayer Group, which goes every Sunday.
Right.
And also you got some classes, some online classes that you're going to be doing. So give us a shout out on what's going on and how we can get involved.
Sure. Well, first of all, for any of you that are interested in joining our prayer group, if you go to my website, Johanna Carroll, JohannaCarroll.com, you'll see that there's an area there that you can find the link and sign up for that. We actually even have posted one of our meditations and discussions. So what we do is, it's interesting how this has evolved. So we thought, we'll do this for a couple of weeks, and it's just, blown up into something really beautiful. And I'm not sure we're ever really going to be stopping it. So what it is 1 hour on a Sunday. We do it through Zoom, so you'll have to sign up for the Zoom link, which we can send to you. And so it starts out, and it's interesting, I use the number of the year in everything that I'm doing. So there's 4 parts to our Sunday sessions. The first part is a metaphysical teaching. The second part is prayer. The third part is meditation. We do ask the guides and the teachers to come in. There's usually a direction as to receiving information. And then the fourth part is an open discussion with the group. And it's just this wonderful, wonderful group. And, I really encourage you, those of you that are listening, if you can't join, at least go to the website and watch one of the Sunday sessions, because they're really intended to help you with that point of view and to lift you up into a whole other dimension. So what's evolved out of that with these little mini teachings is a desire for more, which I'm very, very grateful for. So in July, I'm going to be doing a 4-part series, of course, another 4, on sacred relationships. And by the way, this is not just, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband. This is all relationships, family relationships, people that you're working with, your neighbor. Obviously, the primary relationship is your relationship with the divine. So it's going to cover all of that. And we will be posting that on our website. That's going to be starting in July. So yeah, I've been really busy, and my favorite word, adjust. So I have been busy working with individual clients, and now I feel like with these classes and courses that I'm writing, which are also being launched in June and July, I'm really trying to get as much information out there in a global context to groups of people to really, really help them in this time. So I was thinking when we were on break, I love this quote, misery is optional. I'm sure you've heard that a million times, right?
Yes, I
And so,
have.
I really, have you ever met, there are some people that are really invested in suffering. And
Yeah.
it's really sad on some level because they're so paralyzed. I mean, that's their system. They're very invested. Have you ever met people, Gary, that, they're talking about the same thing that maybe happened, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years ago. And it did paralyze them at the time, but it's continuing to paralyze them. And so they're I don't want to judge this, but it just really saddens my soul to see that people are very invested in the drama of being paralyzed. And I kind of wonder, well, what do they really get out of that? Is it attention? Is it a denial of I need to?
They're stuck. That's
yeah,
what I think.
they're really, really stuck. However, what do you do? This is really more of a question to you. What do you do with people like that are very invested in being stuck? And not that they're a therapist or anything like that. Is it draining for you to hear that repetitive doom and gloom?
I'm glad you said I'm not a therapist, because I'm not. And over the years, what I've learned to do, Johanna, quite frankly, I avoid them. And this has happened on 2 occasions where I ran into someone who I had not talked to in a while, if not a few years or several years, and they were talking about the same junk. Mm-hmm. And in that conversation, in fact, that conversation was the last conversation. I never talked to that person again, because I saw that they're still stuck in 19, whatever it was, or still, they were still stuck in 2007 or 2005. I mean, hey, lights out, see ya.
Well, here's how I work with it. At least I try to. I really try to. There's the spiritual part of me, and then there's the human part of me, right? We all have that. So, because I do therapy work, when I have someone, and even on a personal level, if someone is, on the merry-go-round and they don't want to get off, what I'll say to try to help them and snap them out of it is, and where are you with that today? I try to bring them into the present moment, because the minute we start talking about the past, we're living it. So the minute you start to have, those of you who are listening, if you are going on and on and on, or someone else is, about, well, that happened with 9/11, or, this, or I got divorced 30 years ago, or, all of this stuff, all this bad stuff that's happened to me, they won't let it go. So I'll say, okay, I hear what you're saying. I understand. Where are you with that today? And basically what I'm saying is, every experience has a blessing, and the blessing is wisdom, and the wisdom is awareness about yourself, not the other person or the event itself. And sometimes I'll tell you it does work. Sometimes it gives them food for thought, and they'll say, yeah, I guess you're right. It's not allowing me to have the kind of life or relationships that I really want to have. So then it's like, click, okay, the perspective change, which was good. If they go back to repeat, if they're doing that, I just have to get quiet and stay detached, and the time that I'm going to spend with that person might be less. I could still pray for them, but I'm not going to get on the merry-go-round with them. So I really think that, the big question is, in living fearlessly, how do we find, this is a big question that comes up, how do we find the assurance that God is really there, the universe is really there, that be with me, I really am not alone? We all need empirical proof on some level, right? It's kind of like, God, are you there? Can you really hear me? And so how does it show up? So I wanted to just give a little brief sort of spiritual teaching here. So we're talking about living with faith in a system that works for us. So we're going to say the system is love, God, spirit, universe, heaven, whatever you'd like to call it. We don't necessarily want to, quantify it. So The Sanskrit language is known as one of the oldest languages known to man. And the word for faith in Sanskrit is visva, V-I-S-V-A-S, visva. And so the literal translation of that word, to breathe easy, to have trust, to be free from fear. So really, Sanskrit, it's a very, very profound language. It's got so many layers to it. It's really referring to the breath of life, what we breathe in, which is our experience. And literally, we know when people go into fear, what the first thing they do is they hold their breath. Have you ever noticed that? You'll hold your breath, right?
Yeah. Sometimes.
So I'm not saying you specifically, but a lot of people do. So when we're talking about this beautiful Sanskrit word that says breathe easy, have trust, be free from fear, the breath of life is saying we are without fear when we are fully breathing in the connection to the divine, which, as I always say, the breath is your telephone line to the divine. It's our storage house of experience. And some people refer to this actually as the silver cord. So when our breath, our life, and our feeling are calm, we can have a new kind of faith or believe in ourselves. It's kind of like the forest bath in Japan that I was talking about. Find something in your life, those of you that are listening, that allows you to breathe easy, to calm down. It's like this is saying before, a lot of people have trouble sitting and meditating because, they're told, okay, you got to breathe. But while they're breathing, their mind is all over the place. So how do you still the mind? You have to trick the mind sometimes. So this is a very, very easy technique. I'm going to give it to you again. Those of you that have heard it before, maybe you need to hear it again. This is what it is. You just imagine that underneath your feet is a beautiful golden bowl. And you think of your body like a straw, open at either end. And as you're breathing in, imagine this beautiful blue light comes from that bowl. You're breathing in oxygen. As you're breathing it in, imagine that it's going through your feet, up through your body, up through your spinal column, out through the top of your head. What are you doing? When you're breathing in that blue light, which is oxygen, you're oxygenating your whole system, but you're also clearing that pathway. In metaphysics, we say it's the channel. So when we breathe in, if you put your hand to your mouth right now and you breathe in that, it's cool, right? It's this beautiful, cool, oxygen healing breath. When you exhale, think of a red light. The exhale is the red, is hydrogen. So if you think of that blue light coming up, clearing this beautiful channel, so think of it like a pathway, and it's got all these rocks and obstacles, and there's this fear, and I won't want to be bothered with this anymore. That calming breath, you're clearing that channel. When you are exhaling and the hydrogen, put your hand to your mouth. It's hot. So oxygen is cool, clear, calm. It opens the channel. Hydrogen, that hot breath, any obstacles that are there, it's going to clear it out. And on a cellular level, remember, this is the age of science and spirituality having a great marriage. So it's working, the body and the spirit is working in cooperation. So just think of it this way. I'm going to breathe a blue light up. I'm going to exhale a red light going down. So blue light up, red light down. You can do this while you're walking. You can do it while you're sitting. You can do it in a meditative pose if you want to. Here's how you're tricking the mind. You're watching the blue light going up, oxygen. You're watching the red light going down. So it's blue light up, red light down, blue light up, red light down, and you pay attention to your breath. Eventually what happens when this becomes a habit, your mind will just naturally know that it's going to a more peaceful place. The brain, the mind, the lower mind, the conscious mind, needs to experience something 21 times before it believes that it's true. I mean, this is a scientific fact. So I'm not saying you have to sit there and do this 21 times, but I would say if you bring this into your life and do this for maybe, I don't know, say 5 minutes a day for 3 weeks, wait and see how your body, your mind, and your spirit calms down. Life becomes more peaceful. And here's what's the value of that. Things become more clear to you. So where we had the divine connection clouded over before with distractions, we couldn't think clearly, see clearly, feel things clearly. Now things become more finitely aware. So we have to really take a look at the body as this beautiful sacred instrument. So again, I just want to really say, instead of maybe saying, how can you live life fearlessly, I am living life from a place of love, peace, calmness, joy, and beauty. So see the beauty in the little things. Do something beautiful for yourself every single day. And I'm also going to encourage you, Metaphysical Talk Radio, it's not that we have just great programs. We have fabulous, there's something going on all the time as far as music and things that are available to you. So I wouldn't really encourage you. This is also a really great time in the reinvention of self and living from faith and a solid system within yourself. If you're reinventing yourself, is there something new and different that you should be doing for yourself? Maybe it's eating differently, exercising differently, taking a class, doing something. So again, more than anything else, don't let fear distract you. Let faith build you up to a whole new level. And so really more than anything else, we are sending you a virtual hug from Metaphysical Talk Radio and Dialogue with Divinity. The conversation continues with you. This is a weekly show. You can certainly find us on, Gary, I don't know, all the different access to the show. Can you tell everybody where they can continue to listen besides coming to Metaphysical Talk Radio?
Right.
I know we're on iHeart Radio, right?
Right. For the podcast of this show, which also goes up simultaneously to when we will air this episode beginning on Sundays, is iHeart Radio. Okay. You're also on iTunes. Okay, you're also on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, Cashbox is another podcast directory, and just anywhere you can get your podcast. I know SoundCloud is another one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's so many of them. Well, right now I would say that we're on total of like 8 directories. All right, and that would also include iTunes, iHeart, and Spotify. The best place really to find it is really kind of iTunes, because everybody has iTunes.
Right.
Or Spotify. A lot of people have the Spotify app on their phones, so find us there. In fact, I use Spotify frequently in terms of podcasts. In addition, we're also going to be expanding into Stitcher as well with our podcasts.
Good.
So yes. And tune in as well.
We really want to thank everyone for taking the time to be with us today. And in our own special way, Dialogue with Divinity is really intended to lift you up into the higher consciousness of yourself and your soul, so you can have a beautiful experience of life. Try not to let all this fear, distraction pull you down, weigh you down. There's a lot of beautiful things in life that really are happening. And the main thing to remember is the light will always win. We will always illuminate the dark in our own special little way. So again, we're sending you a very big virtual heart hug Remember, be with me. The minute you say that, you're calling in the presence of the divine. And just to remember that you are a vehicle of love. And you're here with intention and purpose, and that's to live the best life possible. So many blessings to you all. And we'll see you on our next show, which should be interesting because it's all about why are you here? That's a big question. So sending you lots of love, light, peace, joy. Remember to breathe the blue in and exhale the red light. Bye for now.
You're listening to Metaphysical Talk Radio at metaphysicaltalkradio.com.